Good afternoon and happy Friday, everybody, all my fellow Greeks here in Vegas and across the world or wherever the hell is watching us. Thanks for showing up. Welcome to this week's Sci Fi Center Live. Today is May 13th, Friday the 13th, 2022. Woohoo! First things off the top, thanks to our sponsors from Fort Bedlam Coffee House. I got 2 cups today. They're right down below us. If you ever get a chance, best coffee in the world, right down below the Sci Fi Center if you ever get down here to us in person. Also, we have another sponsor for this week, and let me go ahead and bring it up on the screen. It is a Netflix screening right there. For those of you who watch the show Love, Death, and Robots from Netflix, we have a free screening, a virtual screening. I'm going to put the link right now into the chat for those of you who want to go see it. Terror, imagination, and beauty combined in the Emmy-winning Love, Death, and Robots from executive producers Tim Miller, who from Deadpool, Terminator, Dark Fate, and David Fincher, who was one of the best creators ever. And he did Mindhunter, which is the best thing Netflix has going for it right now, the best thing on streaming. I really hope we get to season 3. And he also did Mank. This animated anthology tells startling short stories of fantasy, horror, science fiction with trademark and visual inventions. We'll be showing the greatest hits from the first 2 volumes and a sneak peek of episodes from the upcoming Volume 3. Stick around after the show for a Q&A with executive producer David Fincher. Ooh, I want to be in there for that. Executive producer Tim Miller and supervising director Jennifer U. Nielsen. RSV below to reserve your spot. I'm going to go ahead and put that link into the chat right now. So this is going to be for you guys. Once again, this is a free screening, virtual screening, and there you go. Go ahead and RSVP. It's starting to fill up, so RSVP as soon as you can. All right, so let me go ahead and bring in Fade. What's going on, dude?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Just trying to make it through the week. Just tomorrow's our first 100-degree day here in great old Southern Nevada, so I'm grabbing my ankles for that one because I know just how much fun it's going to be for the next 5+ months until we can get to the part of year that I can relate to, which is the fall. So yeah,
it's already started that near 100 stuff here in Texas. So
yeah, and you guys have humidity, which is
which is horrible.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and take this down, but towards the end of the show, which is going to be a short show today, I'm going to go ahead and put the Love and Death and Robots on, but I just put the link into the chat. Like I said, it usually when I do these, they fill up really quick, but this is for Monday, the 16th. So, like I said, a lot of good names behind it, and if you're already into that series, this is a new one up. So, all right. So, not too much to talk about this week as far as not as big as last week with Doctor Strange and Free Comic Book Day. We still have Strange New Worlds, which to me was another great episode of the series. But for the first time in a while, we have Strange New Worlds without another Star Trek series or without Picard, because Picard wrapped up last week. So now all we had this week for Star Trek was Strange New Worlds. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I got a chance to cursory look at it. I haven't actually had a chance to sit and watch it. I was going to do that tonight. But from what I've heard and from what I saw, it looks like a good episode. I hear Uhura made a showing this time. Like, she did really good with this episode. Or it was like she was a POV character or whatever.
Yeah, they told an away story, an away team story from her perspective as a cadet. The theme of the episode seemed to be risk, immortality, obviously Strange New Worlds. This is her first time. She's put in a death-defying, dangerous situation right off the bat. And I think not only did she shine in this episode, Ethan Peck as Spock continues to get better. With all due respect to Leonard Nimoy, who will always be the measuring stick for this particular character, he continues the wisdom and the tone that Leonard Nimoy set. He's just as wise as he is anywhere else. he looks and he sounds like him. And some of his advice, it's his pep talk. When you watch the episode, it's kind of funny. I enjoyed seeing it. This is the one of the things that this Discovery didn't do enough of, and I hope they do next year, is tell us stories that don't revolve around the captain. That's one of the things that Strange New Worlds has done right out of the bat. The underlying theme of Pike and him knowing what happens to him, they don't make that the subject, but they talk about it. He knows what he's going to become, and then there's a certain scene at the end where he brings up the names. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't played it, but it involves names of people that he brings up on his screen, and it's poignant and it is relevant to the episode. That theme is money for me. Him, and it makes it different than a prequel. I always hate prequels. I'm not a big fan of prequels. Even Discovery, I had a hard time with Discovery being a prequel because I think you box yourself into a part of storytelling that if you break out of, everybody's going to shit in their pants because, that didn't happen. That's not canon. This is different. The fact that he knows who he is and what. Hi, Sarah. Hey, once again, we're operating in a live retail store, so every now and then you're going to hear that chime. Don't worry about it. You don't have to apologize. Hi. Well, I wish I had a camera. Here, come here.
No, I'm interrupting you.
No,
sorry.
Here. Hi. Say everybody say hi, Sarah.
Hey.
Okay. I see.
Hello.
See you around.
Take care.
All right. Yeah. What was I about to say? Oh, yeah. This series, as far as the fact that he knows what he has to do, all these risks and everything that happens around him, he looks at it a different way. So to me, it's not a prequel. It's more of a divergent reality because there's bound to be something here that changes it. And they even address that if you know your future, can't you change it? But if you remember, he got disfigured, and this is not a spoiler because this goes all the way to the pilot, and what you've already known from Discovery Season 2, which you should have already watched, is he becomes disfigured because he's saving lives. So he's kind of caught in a conundrum. Yes, you can alter your fate, but what happened to you because you saved lives. What happens to those lives if you save yourself? So it's really deep thinking. So let me go into the chat and see all who's here because Sith Holocron, I love the name. I have a wish for Star Wars that we see more Sith Holocron, we see more Jedi Holocron, and that we go back to an era thousands and thousands of years before anything that we've gotten tired of, and we explore the Sith, the Alchemist, the history of the Sith, Exarchon.
Please, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I am. And I know everybody gets caught up in the Skywalker saga. I am of the era where we saw these in the movies, and I'm tired of it. I love Star Wars, but I'm tired of being in the same small neighborhood. So when I hear the word holocron, my ears perk up with hope that someday we'll be able to see something like that. Hey, That Event, how you doing? Let's see who else is there. Anthony Beltre, how you doing? Stella Baxter, hello. Should be my producer. I need to get you in here. I need to figure out how we do that. Hello, Aaron. TW. And let's see. Yeah, get that. I put the link in there. You see it under 3 different names. So yeah, get onto that Netflix. The date of the virtual screening is on Monday. If you click on that link, all the info is right there. It gives you a synopsis, and there's even a trailer in there for you. Hot temperatures for hot. Yeah, I'm originally from LA though, so yeah, and I grew up in San Bernardino County, which is the other side of the very desert that I'm sitting in now. But damn, once I went overseas to the other desert, the one without casinos, and I had tanks and planes and stuff, and that 110 and that 115 and that 120 burned. Black people don't generally burn. I burned over there. All right, so it was a Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Hey,
it was,
fellas.
Whenever I came back here to this heat, I'm like, oh. So, yeah, we're bracing for impact for the next 6.5 months. Let's see.
It snowed up here last week.
I don't want to hear about you. Yeah,
We're in the
we're gonna
same
get to that.
state.
Yeah, but you're in like Mars. You're in.
I'm in the
northern-
mountains, basically.
Yeah, you're up where the Godfather 2 took place.
Right.
Yeah, predictions are coming through. We'll get to that after we get a little bit more Star Wars. Okay, so yes. J.J. Abrams, Zachary Quinto's Spock is great. I love his Spock.
Yeah,
It's
but
different.
Ethan Peck is way better. I'm sorry. 10 times better.
It's hard for me to say that because they're asking different things of the two. You see what I
They're
mean?
two different characters.
Yeah.
They're dealing with two different things.
Yeah, the Spock is the Spock that comes through in the movies is going through an emotional period of time. I love that scene where old Spock tells Kirk how to get to him, and he gets to him, and he almost kills Kirk. And when he says, "You never loved her," and he just snaps. And I thought that they hadn't portrayed Spock's human side that well in quite a long time. The Spock that we're getting in Strange New Worlds is different because of the wisdom of in the consistency. We're going to be telling this guy's story over a very long time, so they're giving it to you. I love his voice. His voice sounds like Leonard Nimoy did sound like in that day.
Okay, so like for me, the difference between the two actors that have recently played Spock, Ethan Peck is more the Vulcan, more the intellectual version. Zachary Quito was more closer to his human side, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like there was a whole lot more emotion, a whole lot more rage, really, with him.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Well, like I said, they're literally two different characters. I mean, yes, they are Spock, but Vulcan is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's a big difference between those.
I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a really good dichotomy between the two actors that have played Spock. Like they show two different sides of the character, basically.
Yeah, perfect casting on both things. But Strange New Worlds is, like I said, I love the show because I like the way that the casting has so far been perfect. There's only one person on there that I'm still getting used to, and that's Nurse Chapel, and I'm getting there with her. I thought Uhura's. You got a chance to watch the episode, right, Brian?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
that
you watched
morning,
it,
I was like, "Oh, it was great." No, I was off Thursday, so I'm like, "Boom, let's do it." Yeah, no, it's been great.
They keep throwing things out.
I kind of like.
Go ahead.
I kind of like Chapel from the start. Like I liked her character in the first episode, so. But I'm kind of into that spunky kind of girl, you know.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of room because whenever you saw Nurse Chapel, it was pretty much mainly with McCoy, and McCoy would still, there's no McCoy there to still, the spotlight. So it's all her scenes.
Yeah.
What else did I like about the show? Oh, the story of it with the asteroid, kind of lame, but they made it work. It just seemed like one dangling plot hole that the story didn't entertain me. It's how they handled the story that I thought was cool. So, and they still kind of left something unresolved there. Like I said, without spoiling it, how that resolves, I'm pretty sure we're going to see something again. Because once again, they're using time and forethought as a character of this show. The unseen character in Strange New Worlds is time, is the future, even the future that they haven't lived yet. They're doing things that they're bound to boomerang back at them or bound to be relevant at some point in time. Now, the show takes 10 years before his accident. So we got a lot of time to fill in. How much of this story will be that? You know what I mean? With that much time, are we going to time jump or are we just going to go straight up 7 years solid?
I doubt they're going to. I don't know. Honestly, it kind of just depends on how well the show takes on,
Yeah, because it won't be about the Enterprise, though, pretty soon. Because, like I said, where he's at in his career, he's on his way to being a Commodore at this point. He should be a Commodore by, next season. Or the end of next season, he should be leaving the Enterprise.
Yeah.
So, I wonder is it going to be Strange New Worlds with with him as still around, or is the Enterprise a flat? I mean, because he's teaching when he gets into his accident.
Yeah.
So
honestly, I think this.
Did you freeze or I freeze? Go ahead.
What's that, Dave?
You froze.
Oh, okay.
No, I think honestly, I think this show is. I think the this is going to sound really weird, but I think the main character of the show is the crew. I don't think it's going to focus on just Pike. I don't think it's going to focus just on any one crew member. I think that we're going to go through like the path to the original series. I think that's what we're going to get here.
Yeah.
Will we get it just in a predictable way? I mean, because my suspicion is that Pike's fate will change. That's my prediction. I have that. I don't have that based on any other than my intuition. I think something is going to happen. I don't think that it ends up the way we know it, but it's not going to change. Like we were talking about last week, I don't think it's going to change the trajectory of Star Trek. I think it might change the trajectory of him, what ultimately ends up happening to him.
Yeah.
Beyond or four.
I don't know if you remember, but in the original series, when it talked about Zephyr Cochrane, there were legends about what happened to Zephyr Cochrane. They that he supposedly went off and went to Alpha Centauri or whatever. But if you remember in Enterprise, they talk about he went beyond Alpha Centauri. He didn't just go to Alpha Centauri. He went beyond. I honestly think that might be the send-off for Pike here, too. I think he'll go beyond Talos.
Hey, it would be awesome if he became a traveler. Will Wheaton pops up and says, "Hey, Captain Pike.
Hey, welcome to the Travelers."
Because we don't know what happens to Pike beyond Talos 4, right? We don't know.
Other than he ends up in a wheelchair afterwards.
Yeah, but hell, just you could introduce a Q character and be like, "There you go." I mean, that would be a shortcut, but
what would be interesting is what if Zephyr and Cochrane and him become travelers? Like, what if that was Zephyr Cochrane's ultimate fate too? He became a traveler. I mean, he would be like a key human to do that.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, like I said, we got a long time before we. And like I said, I'm enjoying the fact that it's not only is it a prequel, but it's it's flirting with things that could legit change Star Trek if they did want to, but they could limit it to just changing his character. So I love the series. I mean, I love the intro. I love the uniforms and the new look of the uniforms, except for Uhura's wearing a uniform that looks like it's from Next Generation. And I don't know how she got to that.
Yeah, well, her dress uniform, I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
It was like a Star Trek Online. It was like one of those uniforms from Star Trek Online.
Yeah, I would like to see more ships other than the Enterprise, but I understand why the Enterprise is the star of the show right now. I would like to see some more ships, some more Constitution levels, and fast ships, some different ships.
Well, technically, we did get one other ship in the first episode. Whatever ship that was that number one went out there on.
Oh yeah, because they had to take the Enterprise to go out and get her. Yeah, I like her so far. She's perfectly cast in this role. Rebecca Romaine.
Number one. Yeah, she works.
Yeah. So and I love. There's a dinner scene in here, which is kind of cool. The tone of it, the way they get together, and they play a practical joke on her, and she comes in, and it's but the conversations where the conversations go, wow! It's like I said, and you could see him. There's a point where I almost said Picard, where Pike stops himself because it's always on his mind. There's a certain thing that is always on his mind. We're gonna have to start doing spoiler reviews of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I hate doing non-spoiler stuff. I understand people haven't watched it yet, but I'm like, I know I'm gonna slip up. How long is TOS before
Strange New Worlds?
It should be like what? Not even 2 years.
Yeah, it should be right before.
Because right now Spock's a full lieutenant. When you see Spock for the first time in the Menagerie and the pilot, he's still a lieutenant. When you see him for the first time, when you see him for the first time in the actual show's run, he's lieutenant commander. and he's a first officer. Kirk is a captain, but like we explained last week, Kirk went from lieutenant to captain almost, as soon as he got on the, on the Enterprise.
Yeah, because of the Battle of Annexar. He was promoted rather quickly.
So really, we're probably talking about 2 to 2.5 years. That's what I mean. Right in the middle of this run, we're going to get a Captain Kirk. And it's not, because they're trying to jump around. It's because we're the logical progression of Christopher Pike's career. Remember, he's older now. He's in it. I mean, they didn't age him in the TV show because you never got to see him. He passed away, unfortunately, before any of this, took off. So Jeffrey Hunter, you only see a young, Jeffrey Hunter. He's only 32, 33 years old. But Anson Mount's 50, and you see the gray. They're not hiding the gray. And he's just, wow. He just has a way of making me feel good about whatever the hell they're just about to jump in. Wherever weirdness they're about to get into, he just puts people at ease. There's a quote, and it's one of my favorite. Yeah, it was Archer. Right, Stella. When they first brought him on and they were trying to convince him to go back because he didn't disobey orders to go back and get whoever it was, and he says, "What is that? Quote me if I'm right. Starfleet's a promise. I don't leave you, and you don't leave me." And that was cool. That should be put somewhere, And that from that point on, the way he commanded was just he commands like that, So
haven't they already cast James Kirk for the second season?
Yeah, we hit on that a few weeks ago. Something Wesley. You remember it, Brian?
Well, I'm sorry. Are we talking about Sam Kirk?
No,
not Sam Kirk. James Kirk.
James Kirk was Wesley somebody, right? Hold on.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
I got
I'm
it.
terrible with names. Let's see here.
It's the guy from the Vampire Diaries.
Paul Wesley.
Paul Wesley, yeah.
Yeah, and then they say, I'm going to bring this up right now. They say it's going to be a different Kirk than we're used to. And I had a lot of people that were like, wait a minute, they're going to change everything. No, just like this is a different Spock than we're used to. We're seeing these people at different points in their career other than the ones we've seen them at, which is another thing that's kind of new for me because, like I said, we never got a lot of Pike because he was only around for what? Not even an episode. We never Uhura. We never saw Uhura as a cadet, so we can't really say that they're changing anything other than the fact that we're seeing. Here we go. Paul Wesley is going to be your Kirk. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Executive producer teases a totally different Kirk. Premiering this Thursday, and this was a couple of weeks ago. And this is when he first got casted. And it's Vampire Diaries. Paul Wesley. I've never watched that show, so you guys will have to tell me, who he is. But yeah, so we're set up. Like I said, I'm not sure if we'll see him as a lieutenant, but I think he gets. Is he assigned to the? If canon is correct, he's assigned to the Enterprise while he's still a lieutenant, or is that his first assignment as captain? To look that up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, we're kind of in murky territory at this point.
Yeah, so we could see him. They could take liberties. They could take liberties and say, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna bring him in as a captain because at some point Pike is gonna have to leave." But I still think Pike will be in the series. I still think Anson Mount will be in the series. He will just be doing other things. And as a Commodore, he can take a ship. He can take the Enterprise and still mentor Kirk, or he could be at Starbase. It'd be Enterprise to see. Or interesting to see a TOS era show like this without the Enterprise. So,
True.
So let's see. Actually, like Strange New Worlds. Yep. She's Aussie. I didn't know she was Aussie. Like I said, she comes up with weird stuff every, weird shit to inject them with. And she's like, here. There's been 2 episodes. In each episode, she's injecting them and stuff.
Okay, so here's my thing. All right. I've always been curious as how they actually made people over. I always thought it was more like a plastic surgery prosthesis type situation, like for changing somebody into an alien. So I was kind of curious to see how they did it. I don't know how that would like work because wasn't like Bashir, because you never really got to the nitty gritty. Like when Bashir would like make somebody a Klingon, for example, you know, or Crusher would turn somebody into a Romulan or anything. You know, there was a lot of episodes where they had to go undercover as that species or whatever.
Well, her situation with Nurse
Chapel, that's different.
With Nurse Chapel, it's different because remember, for that first time, there were things that they had to scan that would have makeup wouldn't have done it. It was a DNA thing that they were doing, so they wouldn't have made it past with just makeup. So that actually made sense. It was just weird that
they gave her the injection and they changed it into aliens. Like I was like, what? I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah. It made sense though because when Picard became a Romulan, they weren't being detected that way. There was nothing that they had to get in and out of that was.
That is true. On a genetic level.
Yeah. So I was kind of cool. But it was weird. Like, hey, my name's Nurse Chapel. We just met. Like, whoa, okay.
Right? Hey, I'm just gonna shoot you guys full of stuff
and change your DNA. Not just shoot you full of stuff. We're gonna change you into something you weren't. Okay, please do spoilers. I don't know. Should we?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right. We're going to start spoilers as it pertains to
unless you guys want to wait till Monday, because I'll spoil the hell out of it then.
I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds to mute yourselves. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so he's talking. I'll get to the dinner scene. The dinner scene, they play a practical joke on her. They have her show up in her dress uniform. When she gets there, nobody is. That
was fun.
And when they open the door, Pike's like, dress uniform. And everybody got the joke. He starts talking. He asks her where she wants to be in 10 years. And I didn't realize at first why he was doing that, because he's looking at everything now within a 10-year perspective, because from that moment, that's when his accident occurs. Her answer was stunning. Her answer, I would have never expected from somebody who I would have viewed.
Yeah. Well, honestly, you know what I was thinking when I heard that, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Nichelle Nichols. And talking to like Martin Luther King, like the stories she tells all the time.
She almost left Star Trek, and he asked her not to because you're the only representation. Yeah, that was a deep dinner conversation.
I think that's kind of where they got that from, and I like that. I appreciate that because it kind of tells like Nichelle Nichols' reluctance to be on the show at first. You know,
and then Spock was an asshole for a little bit. He's like, well, if you're not truly committed, other people want to walk that path. Obviously, I knew he was going to take that back at the end there, because that was going to be her moment. But the conversation he has with number one, where she's like, that's what I was alluding to before. If you know your future, why don't you just change that? He's like, no, I'd stay the course, save lives. And he said that. And he brings up the names at the end of the episodes of all, because he's memorized their names. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was memorizing their names at that point in time, I guess in a harrowing moment. And he brings their names up. And they're kids now, because in 10 years they'll be in Starfleet. But he brings them up as a reminder that he has to stay this course, or any one of those people could die and change the future. Now, what I'm thinking is one of those kids that he saves goes on to do huge things that will affect Star Trek all in a huge thing. So, he's going to meet that fate, but I think something is going to change for him beyond that fate. So in order for those people to stay alive and to go wherever they're supposed to go and do whatever they're supposed to do, that has to happen to him. So that's something that's a weird way to tell a story, bracketed between that, but I love it so far. I think we're going to see either a Q or a Traveler or something that we win in the end. We don't have him. I mean, granted, him going on Talos and the illusions and all that stuff happens, but you know what? I always hated that ending for Pike. I always hated that.
I think he's eventually going to find happiness in the end. I think that he's going to find a reward for his good deeds.
Yeah, other than just being drugged up by psychological illusions and shit, which I always hated that, even though I thought that they handled it great. When you first see the Telosians in Discovery, and that scene where he touches a rock and who he realizes what he's going to become, and he still does it. He had an opportunity to change the future then, because remember that Klingon on the Klingon War, he had the opportunity and he does it. He doesn't change it because he has a sense of duty. That's what I really like about his character. He just seems to have a sense of duty that I don't see in the other Starfleet captains. And I like all the other Starfleet captains. Janeway, protocol all the time. Picard, visionary. Military with Cisco. Archer was more of a romantic visionary type of thing. With this guy, it seems like he has a sense of duty. And I don't know that if that's just because his situation of what he knows about. But it just seems like more so than any of the captains of any of these shows, he seems to have a ingrained sense of duty, but it doesn't crack him up though. He seems like he's having fun doing it. Like, let's save the world. The quote, we have a planet to save before breakfast, and then they just go about doing it. And in the military, anybody who's ever served in the military, when you have a senior NCO or you have an officer who has that kind of brevity, you're in life or death situations. So you need to be able to look to your leadership and see them not having a good time necessarily, but not shaking up, not breaking. We're just going through the motions, folks. Others have come before you and done it. Others will come after you and done it. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. You need somebody that says, hey, we're going to be fine. And at the same time, open ideas. He always say, this is the second or third time in 2 episodes where he's asked for ideas from everybody. And that's what happens in those type of situations. It's not just top heavy. You look around you and you have a wealth of talent, different people from different backgrounds, and you ask them, hey, you got any ideas? From your point of view, what do you see here? And not Picard. I keep wanting to say Picard, maybe because it starts with P. He just has that quality about him. And like I said, I'm not going to say Pike is my favorite captain so far. It just hasn't been enough of him. But as far as the first couple of episodes of any show, other than Janeway, I'm enjoying them more than anybody else.
Well, I will say this about Pike. Something I've observed about him over the versions of him that we've gotten. Pike has always been one to depend on the crew more than some of the other captains did. Like it seems that Pike gets that idea, like you were talking about. You look around, you look at the guys and men and women with you, and you go on their talents and their strengths.
Yeah.
He's not just trying to be the cowboy and trying to be the badass, the leader or whatever. He's a good leader in a sense that he focuses on his crew.
Yeah, and with Picard would do that, but there was always like a limit. I mean, a lot of times he wouldn't go past a lieutenant commander, as far as because the only thing about Next Generation that was always constant is that it was the senior officers for the most part, and then Wesley every now and then. But for the most part, the brain trust came from his senior people, and maybe because that's how it works in naval and naval operations. But a lot of the times, like I said, in the Army, it's a different setup. And a lot of these guys, like I said, they come from engineering backgrounds. Sometimes they come from communication backgrounds. They come from different generations, different walks of life. And they're always, you always want to get their point of view because they're going to have to execute whatever you put out. So you need to have a connection there. And Pike's connection to his crew, just in the brief time, and even when he was on Discovery, that wasn't his crew. Yet he connected with them the same way. So it's not just the crew around him. I think the Discovery crew was at its best, to be honest with you, both on an entertainment level and on an operational level when he was the captain, when he took over. So I guess I think they've hit a gold mine here. And casting wise, like I said, they couldn't. Maybe they could have done better, but the fact that I see Anson Mount, I am totally on board with him. Let's see. Yeah, so who are his musical talents? Listen, when it comes to after Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and that bullshit musical note fight where I thought that they were going to literally break out dancing. I thought we were going to see. Remember the Weird Al Yankovic where I have dancers or whatever it is, where he starts dancing and they do the dance battle. I'm like, what's next? So when I heard music, I'm like, oh no. But they handled it well. And her linguistics lined up with it. It made sense. I'm like, I'm a moron, but I get that.
I think they did better with this in terms of communicating with an alien species than they did over the last 5 episodes of Discovery.
Yeah. Discovery.
It was unique, but I think they did this better.
Especially those last ones, like you said. I had some problems with that the last being that they fought that caused the anomaly and everything else. I just thought that being would have been a little bit more aware of what it was doing and a lot more easier to communicate, being as powerful as it was. So, but it all worked out. This here, it just came down to basic math, which, like I said, I'm an idiot. But I know basic math exists and how she broke it down and explained to us as far as numbers goes and how that would be relevant and how she did it. I loved her character in this one. And I'm glad they did it from her point of view. The other one got on my nerves, the one that was down there with him, the Noonian. She's one of the characters I guess I'm supposed to not like because I don't like her. Not to call it. I think she's designed for me to be like, I know you got a backstory, but man, why you gotta be such a bitch all the time?
Yeah, true. Well, why are they gonna be so far on the nose? Like, honestly, I think I would have been more impressed if her last name would have been Yar or something.
Yeah, because dude, another Noonian sin.
I'm just like, no. Can we stop this? If she has any relation to Khan, I'm done. Like,
oh, she does. That's you got that.
So I'm like, no, please don't do this to us.
Listen, thank goodness that it just wasn't a female version of Data where they just gave her Brent Spiner's face and just put a ponytail on her or something like that. I mean, that's how many times are we going to? I don't listen. All due respect to Commander Data, I love you, Brent Spiner. I don't need to see you in this show.
Please don't.
Don't need to see you in this show.
I am Brent Spinered out, man. Like, please don't.
I'm like, next time I see Brent Spiner, I need to see you in Independence Day Part 3.
I would rather have Will Wheaton in this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, we're going to get Brent Spiner in Picard season 3.
That's fine. That's a send off. We're gonna
if they rebuild B4, I'll be all right with that.
Yeah, but you know that's not going to happen. But you know what? With the Q thing, I'm kind of torn on how they ended things with Q because I really like that ending.
Yeah,
but I'm like I like Q. I want to know what Q's purpose was, other than the fact that you've always been my favorite. So maybe some other Q.
Maybe his son can come and play it.
Oh yeah, his actual son.
His actual son played.
He actually looks exactly like him.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the typical army setup? Oh, well, okay. Depending on what kind of
enlisted or officer ranks.
Officer ranks, you have. Like for me, I was at battalion level. I had a lieutenant.
First lieutenant, second lieutenant. And I'm trying to see if I remember. I was in ROTC, so first lieutenant, second lieutenant. Gosh darn it. Captain, lieutenant colonel, full colonel.
You skipped lieutenant.
One, but... Oh, I did. Okay, crap. Yeah. Major. I skipped major in between.
Yeah.
Captain and lieutenant colonel, and then after colonel is general, right? In the army?
So you have first lieutenant. That's your that's generally your platoon leader.
Mm-hmm.
You have your platoon leaders, a second lieutenant. It could be a first lieutenant. Your company commander, which is maybe 200 people. That's an 03. That's a captain. Not captain as like the 06 captain that's in Star Trek or the Navy, but a captain, field level captain. After that, anything outside of field, what's called a field grade, is a major, which is an 04. That's where I worked at. I'm not a major. I was a sergeant. We worked at battalion level. Once you do that, a major is usually part of the what we call the S branches. He's usually working at battalion level, and he runs sections like the intelligence section, operations section, S3, S4, all that stuff. Once you get up there, you start dealing with 05s, which are colonels, which is for the people who don't know, which Riker was. Commander and Colonel are both O5s. 05 in the Army and Marines is a battalion commander. Battalion is when you have 4 or more companies, roughly. And
yeah,
then,
that's kind of how it was for our school. Like,
yeah, and then you went up to full bird.
Yeah.
Which is a captain, would be the 06, which would be the equivalent of a captain
in the Navy or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's a full bird, and he runs a group, which is a little bit bigger than a battalion, and then generals run armies and all that. So, but the basic structure for us was at our level is you had a lot of senior. That's another thing about Star Trek. I wish I would see more
enlisted men.
Yeah, the enlisted run the military.
Yes, they're the meat and potatoes. Like,
yeah, the officers, especially in the Army, the officers are there for administrative, administrative command and control. They are sworn commission to a commission is direct lineage to the Secretary of the Army to civilian leadership. An enlisted person, but they are the backbone of every military. When you watch TV shows and everything else, that's what Star Trek is kind of silly, but we've always accepted it, except for Chief O'Brien. In the case of a ship, there's something called the chief of the boat, which would always be wherever Captain Picard would be, there'd be a chief or an E7 with him. His XO generally wouldn't be cozy up like that because the XO is running the operations and he's running the ship. The XO,
be like a yeoman or something like that. Like,
correct. The XO runs the departments. So like all the lieutenant commanders, like Picard would be in charge of, Data would be his right-hand man because he's Data's chief of operations for the most part, and they would run the smaller subset departments. And then the captain and the senior enlisted. So for the Army at battalion level, it was the sergeant major. But the lower levels at platoon level, company level, we had the first sergeant. The first sergeant is basically like God in the company. Right. Even the junior officers, like an 01 or Butterbar, is going to look at that senior NCO that's probably got 20-something, 30 years of experience. That guy runs the NCOs and the enlisted run the show. And I really wish in the Army, and we interact with our officers a lot because we're with them. Wherever we're at, you have an officer there. Officer comes in and checks on everything. But the NCOs, not to mention officers, are running it. You know what? And that's basically like it is. And even in the Navy, you see movies and stuff like Top Gun, and all you see is the officers. But and same thing with the Air Force. Hollywood shows you that, but trust me. For every officer you see, there's 16 to 20 non-commissioned officers are enlisted, keeping that guy in the air. Tom Cruise on Top Gun, there's a master chief that's in charge of a whole bunch of people that make sure that Tom Cruise's F-18 Hornet stays in the air. Every Air Force pilot, my dad was a senior NCO. He was an Air Force Master Sergeant. The battalion, the wing commander, always looked to him, and that was. He kept all your engineers, all your mechanics, all enlisted. So you don't fly without those guys. My uncle was a master chief. He served on Enterprise, believe it or not.
Nice.
An aircraft carrier. He was the chief of the boat. That guy is like a god. That master chief, anything below an 04, butter bars don't mess with that guy. Ensigns don't mess with that guy. You see a master chief, he commands the room. The officer is still in command, but that guy walks into the room. You know what's up. And I wish Star Trek would show more of that. I think next Star Trek series, they should have a master chief that is with that whoever the captain is at all times, because that's it. That's his senior enlisted advice. So whenever there's advice to give about whatever, because like you said, you only have 20 to 30% of any operation that's officers. The other 70% are enlisted. So that guy, that senior chief or whatever, he's giving you advice based on the majority of the force that you're in command of, and he's giving you advice about in general. Yeah. When we were in the Army, like I said, when I was overseas, whenever you saw the battalion commander, command sergeant major right there. Whenever you saw a naval captain come in, master chief's right there. When you saw an admiral, you saw it. He was a senior man. Once you reach master chief, it's the highest you can go. But anything beyond that, chief of the boat, he's always there. And the closest we've ever come to that is O'Brien, and we didn't even know what he was.
The greatest character in all of Star Trek. No, man, you're making me like this is all bringing me back to okay. I did ROTC the last 2 years in high school for fun. Like, I loved it. I had a blast. I wish I'd have cut weight, but then I realized that 9/11 happened right after I graduated, because I graduated in 2001. And a lot of my friends that were in ROTC with me ended up serving in Afghanistan and stuff. But no, it was really cool. We had our Army instructor was he was a staff sergeant who served in like Panama, the Gulf War, all the way back to the late stages of Vietnam. So it was like, wow, dude, he was in there for a lot. He was airborne. So like,
those guys are tough.
Yeah, he was a badass. So he was cool. And then our senior Army instructor was a major. Yeah, she was pretty cool too. I learned so much.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but Enoch just texted me a picture, and he did it. Look at that.
He met William Shatner. Yep. Dude,
that is besides.
Thank you.
When I get to meet him,
yeah,
I'm going to put his picture right next to this Stan Lee one. I will pay anything I have to pay this August. I'm meeting William Shatner. But yeah, when it comes to those military structures, I wish Star Trek would just do. And I understand, because like I said,
Gene Roddenberry hated it, but it's like, come on, bro, what are you going to do? Like,
yeah,
it's Captain Kirk.
It tells a much more relatable story. And then I know Star Trek's it's built on military structure, but more and more, you can't say that. And then their court martials and all that, they live the military lifestyle.
Yeah, it's military in space. So it's like, bro, you can't. I mean, I understand where Gene Roddenberry is coming from. He didn't want the Federation to be seen as a military organization, but I also look at the Federation and Starfleet as two separate things.
Yeah, and you could still have that military structure, because, like I said, your master chief, your chiefs in the Navy, each section has a certain level of chief, and each chief has a different rank, like a gunner's mate, or a boatman, or someone who handles the supply, all that. Each of those levels has a senior enlisted guy who, once they reach E7, they're a chief.
Yeah.
And then your chief, you got your basic anchor. Then you have a senior chief. He has 1 star. And then you have a master chief who has 2 stars. If you've ever watched the show or movie G.I. Jane, the instructor, the Navy SEAL instructor, the one that does all the poetry, the Viggo Mortensen character, that is a master chief.
Okay.
A master chief wears the same exact uniform, well, the chiefs do in general, as a very almost altered uniform as a captain. So when you see your chiefs in Starfleet, they'll look exactly the same. They'll just have like a different insignia. And I really wish they would, and you see lower decks, all you see is junior officers. And you're leaving out a big part of military storytelling by not having enlisted, because we represented the majority of any force. And it's probably going to be that same way. Because there's no way logistically you could run things like Star Trek and not have enlisted. You just don't have enough people. You don't just have enough officers to do that.
You have to have has to be civilian support at certain level too, because even at an army base, not everybody that works at a base is military. There's a lot.
You have people who are civilian support. You have people that handle the food. You have people that work in the places where you shop.
The BX and all that kind of stuff,
And then there's certain military functions that we can do, but when there's a war, like when I went to war, my MOS was taken over here in America by a civilian, because when you have war, you send your soldiers. You don't want your soldiers be doing things that you can pay a civilian to do, because that civilian can't fight a war, but the civilian can handle stuff at home.
True.
So all your factories and manufacturing stuff, usually it's overseen by military, but in War Act, you actually have to go over and get that done. So let's see. Somebody asked some questions about that. I'm third generation. But yeah, my dad, like I said, was a master sergeant. My grandfather, I don't know. I think my grandfather got out of corporal, but he was drafted. He was in World War II. Okay. I think over by my parents' family and between the extended and the maternal and paternal side, there's about 30 of us that are military. Most of them are jarheads. Nobody's perfect.
That's all good, man.
But yeah, my cousins, all third generation. My cousins are actually, I have second cousins that are fourth generations, and each one of us had our dad's name. So my uncle's James, Master Sergeant James Powell, but he has a son that's in the Air Force. We can't. My cousin's Air Force. He was a Master Chief in the Air Force. His son went in, so there's 4 generations of Powell right there, and then 3 because I haven't had any kids yet. But my grandfather, my father, and myself were all military, and we've all been to war. My father was in the Vietnam era. I don't know exactly where he went. I know my uncle was, because they both joined in '67. They both joined in '67 and '66, and then they served full careers. I did not serve a full career, simple because after the combat thing, I spent 15 months on deployment. When I came back here to try to get my business and everything, I was so disconnected. I did a couple of reserve stints after that, and then I just, even in this business I'm in right now, giving up a weekend was devastating sometimes. There was first weekend of the month is usually reserve duty.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, just as like this last Monday, this last first Saturday of the month would have been free comic book day. I would have been in a reserve unit, and my business was suffering, so I couldn't, The army, the military got me. I was available for them. They took me. They put me in a war. I got my combat patch. I got my flag. I made it back alive. Like I said, I did my bit. But like I said, it's I would love to see them expand that, because like I said, a Master Chief alongside of I don't know necessarily Pike, but any of them. I mean,
why don't we have any on the bridge? You'd think that there would be. Is it all officers on the bridge?
No.
It always seems that way. Next Generation, I think, was a little bit different, right? I mean, I always considered the no-namers to be,
Yeah, without tabs or anything. But even then, why not give them some kind of emblem? Because when on a ship, your helmets, the people who have, I'm correct, if you guys got any Navy people that are here, but I'm pretty sure from the way my uncle told me, and the way I've always seen it, if you look on any show, is your people who are steering the ship are not officers. Those are petty officers. Those are E3s, E4s, E5s. The only people that are on a ship at any given time is you got your radar operator and you have your section chiefs that are running 4 or 5 NCOs. But even still, there's depending on the size of the ship and the control area, there's if there's 15 people, 3 of them are officers. You'll have whoever's in the chair. So whenever the captain leaves, there's a officer that takes his place. And whenever senior NCO leaves, if the E7 leaves, the NCO takes his place. But there's always, wherever you're at military, there's always more enlisted than there are. And on an away team, your away team's not going to have any officers for the most part, right? Unless there's a specific targeted mission.
I'll send in the first officer down.
Yeah,
he's doing the bent knee over a rock. All right, I'm Will Riker. Okay, red shirt, you go stand over there. That laser beam thing ain't gonna kill you.
Yeah, or go sniff this flower.
Yeah, right.
And but yeah, you would never do that. Reason why you would never do that is because what's going on, Ruben? Is because you would lose your command and control immediately.
Yeah.
So if I'm sending 5 officers down, wow, that's a tight. Go ahead.
That's a big risk.
Hold on. Those are all the number ones that they came out with, but it's still a legacy number 8 something though. So those are all but one. One of my geeks. I'm going to get the camera so I can turn my camera around so that you guys can see when my geeks come in to get their comics. But yeah, you would lose your command and control immediately. I mean, you're going to send the first officer down and the captain. How many times was Riker down there with the car? Oh my dude! Right. One explosion. We would never do that in the military, simply because, once again, command and control. Usually, when we go out on any type of mission, like we're going to go on a platoon, we're going to go on a patrol or something like that, you're going to have a platoon leader. That's it. That's the only officer you have in a platoon. You have one guy.
Yeah, because the officers stay back because, like you said, you lose command cohesion. Yeah.
The only time that your officers go forward regularly like that is if a company is moving. So the O3, the company commander, if the company is moving, the company commander is going to be there. If the platoon, which is a smaller element, is moving, he's the one leader. He's gonna have E7. He's the one guy. unfortunately, you lose a butter bar. That's not going to kill your command and control. You use a field grade officer. Once you reach the field grade, we have what's called a TOC, Tactical Operations Center, and that's where they run it. That's where you always see the maps and everything else, and they're running things because from that point of view, they can see everything. There's no reason for them to be down on the ground with us. We're the operators, but they have maps. They're dealing with communications. They're running sections. They're communicating with different services. They're watching over, making sure the command and control communication. So that way, when you have, so if we're in trouble on the ground, they have assets that they call back to us. We give coordinates. They do all that, and they're running all that. The S3 runs all that. That's usually a major field grade officer. But generals come out to the battlefield. But once again, if your generals are like that, I mean, like Patton would do it, but Patton would be on the battlefield. But after he rolled every tank through, and they secured that area. But he's not going to be in there in harm's way. I mean, he just generally doesn't happen that way because that's why if you look at what's going on in Ukraine, things are failing in Ukraine when you hear there's been 13 or 14 generals killed. That only happens because when things break down in the front line and it's not being ran right, then higher level officers have to come to the front and run it. That's why our militaries are so effective, because our lower ranking and middle ranking guys are efficient in running the operation, where the general is basically running much larger swath, but he should never have to come down and take over for somebody. That's how God can relieve the command. So yeah, it's militaries are different around the world, but for the most part, the American military is a gold standard as far as the structure goes, and us being able to operate. We're not as centralized as a lot of people think. Commanders can make decisions on their own in their experience, but they're also making, once again, back to the enlisted. He's getting advice from a guy who's probably been in the military twice the time he's been in. So Chief O'Brien, that's the only one we've seen. Do we have another actual chief? Not chief by position, like chief of engineering like that. That's actually an officer. But we don't have too many other enlisted, do we? Did I freeze or did you guys freeze?
I'm still here. I'm just listening to you talk.
Oh, Brian must have Brian muted himself. But yeah, so I would do that. I'd like to see that put forth and see a chief and see things still from the enlisted affair. But all right, so our next topic is Warner Brothers has got that carving tool out, and let's see. Let me bring up some of the stuff that we bought. I had the article up here, but then I went into the Star Trek one. I kind of screwed myself up. But it's basically shows like Naomi getting canceled after the first season. Obviously, Batgirl has been canceled after 3 seasons?
Yep.
Let's see. And hold on. I have up. Let's see. And a lot of this doesn't have to do necessarily.
I don't even remember what she looked like.
Oh, there we go. That's not it. Let's go. That's the Star Wars thing. But I'll bring it up. All right. WB cancellations. WB cancellations. Canceled shows. All right. So, and mainly for me, it's going to be the DC stuff. Okay. So Legends of Tomorrow is gone after 7 seasons. Batwoman's gone after 3 seasons. Naomi's gone after 1 season. A lot of it is because the CW is being sold. It's going to be sold because it never made money. All right, so veteran shows like Charmed, Dynasty, In the Dark, Legacy, Legends of Tomorrow, Roswell, New Mexico, and Stargirls. Stargirl is the only one that I know of that has of the DC shows, and maybe Lois and Clark, that hasn't been axed yet. Stargirl, I see leaving the CW and going over to HBO Max.
Yeah.
Superman,
They may do that with Superman and Lois too.
Yeah. The CW, just like I said, it has never made money in its entire existence. But So some of that is David Zaslav, but I think some of the other stuff is the fact that some of the stuff should have never been greenlit to begin with. I hear what's the Gotham Knights? Gotham Knights is going forward, and I hear about all that. I'm going to make a bet right now, just like I did on Enash's show. That show's not going to happen. And every time I say that, I hear people say, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? It's going to happen. They've already got scripts together. They've already started this. Nobody cares, right? If they feel that there's nothing to gain by going forward, it doesn't matter how far they've gone, they're going to cut it. All right? Look at New Mutants. New Mutants was done and in the can when Disney purchased Fox. How long did it take us to get that on the screen? So just because these things have been greenlit doesn't mean that they're going to happen. None of them, to be honest with you, nothing prior to Zaslav's taking over, as far as I'm concerned, everything should be evaluated. I don't think he should go forward with any more inherited stuff. The people who put those things in motion, most of them are no longer with the company or on their way out of the company or been in positions now that have been marginalized by the merger. So the House of Ideas needs to start from Zaslav forward. All right. So all these other things that and we constantly hear about Blue Beetle. If I wish Zaslav had been in control when Batwoman or Batgirl was greenlit. You know, because now I have a Batgirl. I don't even know who my Batman is yet. We won't even have that figured out for another year or so. Where's Superman? You know what? You're building characters in these same neighborhoods and in these same universes. You're giving me the betas and the ABs and the Zs and the lower tier characters without fixing and letting me know where my alphas are. But the first thing he did when he came in is, what did he say? He showed concern about Superman having been languished for as long as they have. These huge giant nuclear IPs that they have. When's the last time Superman has been on a proper big screen? Not cameo, head cut off. Proper big screen has been 2017. We're in 2022 now. You know what? When's the last time that Batman that we got introduced in 2016 has been on? You see what I mean? But we're venturing off into these outer rim characters, and I know he's not going to listen to me, but I think the way forward is to reestablish the core characters and then work your way out. And I think Wonder Twins is another.
It's like I said on the show the other night, on the lounge the other night, you got to get your tent poles in order before you get the rest of the like outlier characters.
Yeah. If you're going to do Blue Beetle, go ahead.
They've got to establish the Trinity again first. Like they've really got to get back to, it's like when you're on the football field, when you're playing football, you got to look to your captains. You got to if your quarterback and your running back and all that are on par, then the rest of the team's not going to be on par. Yeah. So you got to get those established and get good people in there first before you get the rest of the teams that are going to be worth a damn. So.
Well, and as far as the audience goes, in order for me to care about the Z character, I need to care about the Alpha character. Like I said, people look at Marvel and the way Marvel's done it. Marvel's not DC. All right. Marvel use their characters as bricks to build up their infrastructure, to build their building. DC has the building already. Superman, Batman, those are the skyscrapers. You don't build up to notoriety that you already have. I don't need Superman is your ready-made skyscraper. He is your ready-made city block. He's all the infrastructure you need right then. You don't use Legos when you have the building. Marvel did it their way because they wanted to tell the founding of a Infinity story, and that's fine. So they used the characters in succession of how those characters would come out. That's a situation unto itself. That is not the situation DC is. Everybody knows who Superman is. And your expectations of DC Comics is Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and so on. In 2008, there was zero expectations for Marvel's Connected Universe. So you really can't compare the two and try to do that. You have the building, all right? So you already have that. It's like when I move into a neighborhood, I can move into a neighborhood that's just building up. You know what? But I work at the corporate office. I work in a bank. I move in that little neighborhood. I got to drive all the way down, 45 minutes to an hour. You know what? I want to move into the neighborhood where my bank is right around the corner. That's what DC is. So the comparison is kind of stupid. And that's what needs to happen now. I don't want to see any more of these B's and Z characters without knowing what the path is from the Trinity, right? Because your expectations, when I say DC Comics, when the average person says DC Comics, first names come to mind is Superman, Batman, and so on. Prior to 2008, Marvel Comics didn't really have that kind of notoriety. Spider-Man, and you had some outlaw movies, but as far as their connected universe goes, the expectation for their connected universe was nowhere near what DC is. Everybody knows who Superman is. Hell, there are more people prior to 2008 who knew who Batman's butler was than knew who 80% of Marvel characters was. So when you have that expectation, you have to operate like you have that expectation. You can't. I don't want Legos in small steps to Superman. You know what? I want Superman as being the attractive skyscraper, the high rise, and then you build your small townhouses in your neighborhoods from that. That's the way they should be. And it sounds like that's the way he will operate, judging on some of the statements he's made. So I'm happy that this guy is in control. I wish he had merger maybe a year or two ago, because a lot of the stuff that even if it does roll out, it's not going to roll out with the dedication that it was going to roll out previously, because most of those people are gone. I mean, every day you see another Warner Brothers executive leaving. So why am I going forth with their plans when we're not even going forth with the people that made them? It's my question. What do you think?
Well, honestly, like in general, I think that you're right. I think that Zaslav really needs to take a heavier hand with what's going on. Establishing the Trinity, establishing like the goals for what DC wants to do, or at least movie division wise. Taking out some of these other shows. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna miss some of the CW shows because I was invested in some of them, but you're getting to a point where like it's time to end them. It's time to skate off and in the Arrowverse. It's time to let it go.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Because like I said, Arrowverse had its run and had its purpose. Now, if they were going to keep the CW, then I would say just blow it up and start with Superman and Lois and then start from there. Because at least you're starting with the alpha on that level and then go from there. But it sounds like these shows are going to get rolled up to HBO Max unless they – because from what I understand, it'll end up being sold to a company that has nothing to do with real, that type of entertainment. So unless you sell these TV shows to another network, then you would have to cancel them, because who are you producing them for? So it's where we need to be as far as DC content goes. As far as I'm concerned, I need the axe to cut the tether that is linked to the previous regime. That's what I want. I want to know that the decisions going forward are being made by people who are going to be there for the long term, not by the guys who are being pushed out.
Zaslav apparently has a good head on his shoulders. Looks like he's doing right. So frankly, I'm happy with what's going on. I'm happy with seeing his path at this point.
Yeah, so I'm on board. So. Hey, and lastly, the thing we were going to talk about a little bit. Let me see if I can get some of my screen on. Is going to be a preview for. Let me put. Is for Sci Fi Center Presents. I've been lazy. I have not. We haven't done one in a while, and I really want to do one, but let's bring up this. We're going to do a couple of them here based on availability of individuals like yourself, obviously, and Silence Gotti and some of the other people. We're going to do ones for let's see. Gotta bring up the share screen thing's acting up on me. Give me a couple minutes. Get rid of that. Now I see why people do multiple screens and stuff. I see why they do it now. I see why they do it now because so I'm just gonna bring up this one because it gives you the same premise. So we've talked about what we want to do here. Here we go. All right, let's get back up here. And this window. And sure, here we go. So some of the ones we got coming up. One of them is not pictured here, and that's going to be Blade Runner because next month is the 40th anniversary of the release of Blade Runner, one of the great science fictions, along with its successor, Blade Runner 2049, ever made. But the ones we're going to be doing the 30 next week are going to be going to start off with Chris Claremont's X-Men. Hopefully, I can get with you guys maybe tomorrow or next week on that one. Chris Claremont's
definitely on board. I'm definitely on board with the Chris Claremont X-Men one. So,
yeah, hopefully we can get it. We can film it tomorrow and we can give it to Enosh and have him put that one on Monday, if possible. If not, Frank Miller's Daredevil, which, like I said, led to so many things. In many ways, it led to Frank Miller's Dark Knight. The story, once he was successful here with this storytelling mechanism, with that type of character. I think that led to a lot of things. It was the first storyline that I read that made the city as much a part of the story as anything else. The crime and the corruption of Hell's Kitchen in that area of New York was a much part of the story as any of the villains and the superstars that were in it. And then X-Files, something that I don't think gets talked about a lot. A lot of it is because time has passed, but a lot of it is because the last maybe 3 or 4 years of X-Files weren't that good. X-Files, once you get past season 4 of X-Files, it kind of hurts to watch.
I am legitimately right now in the background on my TV. They are running an episode of the X-Files. So,
which episode is it?
It's one of the newer ones, but it's the one where they go along with the cops group. They're on Cops.
Oh yeah. That was actually funny because Cops was on the air as that aired. The best episode of and we'll go over this in detail when we do it. The best episodes are 2 episodes actually. Season 4, I think episodes 10 and 11. It's a episode called Max and Tempest Fugitive. It's a 2-parter. I forgot which one comes first. It is the best episode of the series. If you do not ever get a chance to watch a bunch of X-Files episodes, but you want to get a gist of what X-Files is all about, those 2 episodes are it. It has everything you ever need to understand the drive that Fox Mulder has behind him, the drive that Dana Scully has behind her. It has the aliens storyline in it, but it's the why. It's not just a bunch of goofy stories and myths every week. There's a reason why Fox Mulder does what he does, why he's driven, why the conspiracy has to be unraveled. And those 2 episodes don't connect to everything else, but it gives you a sense of his inspiration. And whenever people tell me that they want to get into X-Files, but it's just too big, they don't know where to jump in, that's the ones I give them. The other episodes we're probably going to go ahead.
There's another episode in season 4. It was called Home. Remember the problem that episode caused?
Yeah, and it was one of the worst episodes of the series. I'm sorry. And you know why that episode sucked as much? You know why? It not only because of the controversy and all that stuff. They aired that episode after probably one of the better episodes of the entire run. That episode was episode 2 of season
4.
Yeah. That episode was episode 2 of season 4. And that was after X. Remember, X had gotten shot? And the whole they wrapped up. That was one of the best episodes. You were on a roller coaster up here, and here's home.
Yeah.
Home was horrible. So I'll give you some episodes to skip too, because that episode was horrible. But no, you do it with the 3rd episode. Third season, end of season 3, cliffhanger, Talithe Kume. I'm probably butchering that. It is the episode where the shape-shifting alien and the cigarette-smoking man are having this back-and-forth conversation, and the alien is changing shape into all the people that they've killed because he knows what they're up to. Awesome. X-Files has some great stuff, and it had great stuff at a time where it was cool to watch TV on Friday. Friday was where they put it. Once X-Files became a hit, they moved it to Sunday nights, which was right up, The Simpsons and all that stuff, and then they started doing trash. Doggett, with Patch, Jason, I think we know the guy's name, the Terminator 2 guy.
Yeah.
Patrick something.
Robert Patrick, who's an excellent actor. Agent Doggett, that character sucked. And then he had, but I liked his partner, Maria. His female partner that he had. I liked her. That character.
Yeah, they just should have. There was a way to keep that series going, like a Law and Order type of thing. But the problem with X-Files is once you got to the heart of the matter and solved it, it was like a dog chasing the car. You finally catch the car, it's over with, And they tried to add on after that. Oh, let's see. X-Men. Wow, X-Men is that run. Right now, I got the picture of the Mutant Massacre up there, which was he had already been on the title for quite a while. I think he was been on the title for maybe 11 years.
It was 11 years.
For me, this is where X-Men went up to the atmosphere. The Mutant Massacre was the first major mutant storyline, and it was a tradition that they kept for a long time afterwards. It was brutal. It was violent. People getting shot. This is why, if you ever want to know on these other shows why I hate X-Men, the animated series, why I loathe the animated series, the image of X-Men was built up in large part during this storyline and subsequent storylines that came afterward. This is a brutal storyline. People were getting killed in the tunnels. Even if they weren't the big name characters, people were getting killed. People were getting mortally wounded. Colossus was paralyzed. Kitty Pryde was almost killed by her. I mean, there was so many things. Nightcrawler, there was a character called Riptide that was killing hundreds of Morlocks just because he was throwing his stars and he was a tornado type character. Angel's wings got ripped off in this one. I mean, it was a brutal storyline. And then I think when we got into the 90s, which I call this, as far as comics goes, the soft 90s, they wanted to capitalize on the popularity of these characters without taking the brutal situations that these characters... You
still have to admit, though, there were a couple of brutal storylines during the 90s. Age of Apocalypse comes to mind. Fatal Attractions comes to mind. Those were both brutal storylines.
As far as the comics goes. But I'm talking about how this era, the popularity that Chris Claremont brought the X-Men to is why I got an X-Men animated series. And to me, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, it's a tragedy that some people were introduced into the X-Men via that cartoon before they ever saw what the comics were about.
What?
It brings a tear to my eye knowing that
if it wasn't for that cartoon, I wouldn't be sitting here.
That is tragic. I wish I had soundtrack. I wish I was good enough with StreamYards to have the sad music start to play.
Violin music.
Not even. I mean, that hurts my soul, and I understand that's the case with a lot of this stuff. But it hurts my soul knowing the work that went into making.
Okay,
X-Men
so here's a Claremont era storyline for X-Men that you probably will remember.
All right, Brian. Thanks for coming.
Night, Brian. Take it easy, buddy.
Later.
But no, here's a Claremont era X-Men story that I'm pretty sure you know. God Loves, Man Kills.
Yes, it's a graphic novel. I have it.
Yeah, I do too.
They did a new one too, a continuation to it about last year. The New Mutants. I mean, everything that was coming out in the 80s and early 90s was good. When I see that cartoon, I'm like, what? I see Apocalypse in that cartoon. I'm like, what? That's the first time you saw X-Men? Here, let me put some of this paper in your hand, Let me introduce. And that's why I'm doing the X-Men one in particular, because of that era led into the other. And when I say soft 90s, I mean a lot of people tried to capitalize on the success of comics in the late 80s by making animation. Unless, you can't sugarcoat what the X-Men were. And, like I said, the Mutant Massacre is a storyline right there. Tommy gets shot, or Tommy's boyfriend, he's the first person to die on page in the Mutant Massacre. He gets, Scout Hunter puts a rifle barrel to his head and shoots it. She gets killed off screen, shot to death. I mean, Scout Hunter was brutal. There was nothing,
Well, the Reavers just in general were brutal villains.
Yeah. Hell, Wolverine is a killer, and he kills in very graphic ways. Wolverine, he has these claws, and he can disembowel you in a heartbeat. Wolverine is, and he always says, killing. I'm the best at what I do. What I do isn't very nice, and that's why, because he's a killer. And I just think that element just got softened up when you try to turn things into a cartoon. Donald Pierce, or Reaver, as you brought up, was a bionic body because Wolverine tore him apart.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, but then it's just in the Hellfire Club, the costumes and stuff that they wore looking like they did, you can't replicate that in animation. But like I said,
Claremont gave us one of the most classic X-Men stories ever, and that was the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah, Dark Phoenix saga, her killing herself back then. Obviously she would be back, but yeah, this era, and like you said, that is when you told that was the reason why X-Men was so appealing in that era. That's because you knew that you were going to get those type of storylines that you weren't going to get necessarily in Avengers, you weren't going to get in a Fantastic Four, you were going to get in X-Men. I mean, it was good all the way up until, like I said, right around then. And like I said, in large part due to Claremont. So we're going to cover the Claremont era in a couple weeks. We're going to cover Frank Miller's Daredevil, and then X-Files, The Impact. And then next month, for the 40th anniversary release of Blade Runner, we're going to go deep dive into that one. I'm going to do one for my channel, which is the Sci Fi Center, it's own YouTube channel, which I will go ahead and put that in here right now for you guys. And we're also going to do one for Poindexter's channel, because there's a lot to cover when it comes to Blade Runner and the impact that Blade Runner has had on science fiction, and that goes for people who don't even know what it is. So there you go. All right, so there's the link. Let's see. I think they did for a little bit. I think there was a Lone Gunman, a couple of specials or something like that. But once again, once you catch,
they did their own show, but it only lasted a few episodes. It wasn't like they canceled it way too early. I think if they'd have trusted it, it would have been an interesting kind of campy type show.
Yeah, it was some. They were cool, but not everybody needs to spin off. I mean, and once again, once you caught once the Black Ooze, and there's another episode we'll go over, the Red and the Black, where the storytelling apparatus of the colonization of X-Men or X-Files goes. Once you learn that and you learn what was happening, that's it. It's over. You had to come up with something else that was going to be so intriguing that you would have needed to make it big, and they didn't. They just kept on kind of going. The last 3 years of X-Files was kind of painful, and then they weren't even on it, which I was okay without Scully and Mulder. I just needed a lot better dedication to the two people that they brought in. They just didn't give them stories, and that show lasted 10 years. It probably should have lasted 4, 5 at the most.
Well, the last 2 seasons, you had the season 10 quote unquote miniseries season, and then you had season 11. Those went back to being Scully, Mulder and Scully, and some of the stories in those 2 seasons were okay. They've got a couple of stories in the miniseries, the season 10 miniseries, that were kind of tongue in cheek when it came to X-Files, so they were kind of funny. Like there's one where it was Mulder meets he's a were-lizard, and that one's fun. I like that episode.
Another thing that I think hurts anytime you try to do, and we covered this with The Crow and Red Dawn, is the 90s were as much a part, and what we had and didn't have were as much a part of X-Files as any of the characters and anything else. Same thing with The Crow. the era that The Crow was released, when that soundtrack, when music was really important to the point where you bought your music based on what you would hear on the radio, and the era, the grunge era, the post-grunge era going on right in the middle of the 90s, Red Dawn, we were in the middle of the Cold War. When you reboot and remake these things, you can't take that with you. I can't impart the 80s on you. I can't impart the 90s on you. You sort of had to be there unless you want to do a period piece. But when you're trying to tell a 90s story in the lens of 2022, I think that the Crow thing is doomed to fail. Not because Skarsgård is not a quality actor, or the people that are in it are a quality thing. You're trying to transport something that you can't transport. Unless they go in a completely different direction, then it's not the Crow. So I'm going to take a wait and see attitude on it. I wish them well with it. But like I said, when you listen to the Crow soundtrack, you understand where you're at, especially if you were alive then. You understand you're in the 90s. And that mood, that goth mood, everything that was taking hold at that time was part of the atmosphere. And the same thing with the X-Files. There's things that that they didn't have that we have now that would have made a lot of their mysteries a lot easier. And you could tell that when they restarted the series 9-10 years later. The world has changed. That was pre 9/11 for the most part. The world has changed, and sometimes you have to write stories to fit the time that you're in order to relate to your audience. Otherwise, you're aiming at guys like me. But guess what? I lived the 90s. I don't need it. I lived the 80s. I don't need that. I mean, I'm in 2022 now. Give me shows that are connected to now and to make the world around me irrelevant. And then you're hitting me and you're hitting the younger generation. So, like I said, no more remakes. That's a whole show on its own. But I think is Clinton. This is a guy who works for me. What a knucklehead.
I want to see a Were Prairie Dog.
That's him. I don't have anything else to cover. You got anything you want to bring up?
Not off the top of my head, man. Just that I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks of Sci Fi Center Presents, because we got some great topics coming up.
Hopefully we can get on it tomorrow. Let me get with Dawson and everybody else, see who we can get on board. Until then, guys, thank you for giving me 90 minutes of your time, and hopefully, God willing, knock on wood, because it's a tough world, we will see you if not on if we get an episode of Sci Fi Center Presents in the can, it'll air on Monday around 2 p.m. and you'll see afterward. We'll get it all set up. And otherwise, we'll see you at our same bat channel, same bat network next Friday, 6:30 p.m. Don't know what we'll be talking about. Don't know how the week will unravel, but it'll be something interesting. All right. Thanks, guys.